Third degree burn on the 64 third degree burn. Yeah, 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 yeah. Chaos, searing Lord of Flames. Keep fighting the chaos that lives inside me, trying to hold down the beast. But it's hard to do that because everybody angers me and triggers it. I live in this world, this Kansas City. What's up, my archfiends of chaos? This is your king of the night, Vincent Valentine EX. Now, before I go to bed, I actually want to defend one of my claims that most people may not like, especially this community, or any community I join anyways. But I'm gonna name reasons why I loved Final Fantasy XIII. And I read this from articles telling people, them telling me to admit that it's bad when I'm not going to do that because I'm going to admit that it's good because it was never bad, at least in my case. So let's get to reasons why I think Final Fantasy XIII was actually good. First of all, Final Fantasy XV would have never have came out if it wasn't for 13. Versus 13 was part of the trilogy of Versus 13 was supposed to be the part of the trilogy of the 13 saga, the Fabula Crystallis Novia, and 15 is still part of it now. It's actually even ensured that it is with the new updates at 15. So Final Fantasy 15's creation comes from 13. 2, it had another female protagonist. The only female protagonist we ever had was Terra up to this point, so it got diverse. We got a female protagonist and an African American character in SAS. Well, they always had that, you know what I'm saying. So we got a female lead again, so it was kind of fresh from the take. It's pretty much Cloud Strife if Cloud Strife was a woman, pretty much. And Lightning, I'm gonna say it. Lightning's super hot. Okay, she's waifu material. Another reason why I love Final Fantasy XIII is it changed the battle system and modernized it. Now, people are on the fence of the battle system, but I kind of like it because it kind of introduced new elements, and plus, it could get the new generation of people into Final Fantasy, since nobody really wants to play turn-based. Turn-based is kind of 90s. Now, there are going to be a few of those fans that love only turn-based, but, but it's not always the case. The other reason why I like Final Fantasy XIII. Tetsu Nomura as a character is the one who designed the characters for 13. So he had at least a few involvement of 13. Plus, that even includes the sequels that come ahead as well. Another reason why I like 13 is Final Fantasy 13-2. The story, the villain, which is Caius, the time travel kind of did it right. As to talk about paradoxes, but then again, even then, time travel is a very confusing concept, but it has went back to the original concept of time travel, just like Final Fantasy 1 has done, and 9 has done, so it kind of went back to the roots of what a Final Fantasy game originally had, but in a way where it's both good and bad. It's good because it explains the time traveling and how time traveling works. Bad because the whole game was nothing but going to different time periods. It's not like you could move to one location or the other. But 13... And here is the bad. The bad is 13-3. And 13-3 is a good game. Don't get me wrong. 13-3 was a good game. Lightning's Return is good. But you can't really enjoy Lightning's Return because you had a few days in day. You have a few in day. You had a few in game days to save the world, or you get a game over and you have to start over. If they would have took out the clock, if they would have took out the end of the world clock in Final Fantasy 13-3, which is Lightning's Return, I would have been able to enjoy the game the way it is. The other reason why I like Final Fantasy 13 is the scenery is beautifully animated. Like, every world is worlds I personally would want to live in, even though I would never want to live in Final Fantasy 13, because any Final Fantasy world's kind of the type of worlds you don't want to live in, because there's always the end of the world. Every Final Fantasy game has events going to the end of the world. But, you know, if I had to choose, I would be 13 because of all the locations. And this would include 13-2 and Lightning's Return as well. The scenery is absolutely beautiful. The characters look absolutely beautiful. For PS3 and Xbox 360 graphics, it was top of the line. They didn't play around. This was top of the line. Most of the characters look just like us, look like real ass people. So, you know, it was easy to get invested in the stories, even though the story was kind of confusing because we went from the Foul Sea, the Sea to time traveling, and then the end of the world. But, you know, even with the confusing story, you gotta admit that the scenery and the characters look really good. Now, another reason why I like Final Fantasy XIII is the story. Even though most people were confused about the story, you gotta at least admit the Final Fantasy XIII and 13-2 had a good story. And, you know, had memorable things, memorable villains, memorable things that happened within its entire lore. And matter of fact, even the lore is expanded in novels, not fan-made, in novels. You know, stuff with Etro, the Foul Sea, Lassie, Benevelza, Lindsay, Pulse, and everything. The other reason why I like Final Fantasy XIII, the gods were written really well. They were not, like, pushed on us. And yes, we were confused about who the gods were, but nonetheless, it was kind of settled. If you actually understood some of the lore and why things happened the way they did, you would actually know that the gods were written really well. So, that's another reason why I like the game of Final Fantasy XIII. Final Fantasy XIII also spawned off a prequel known as Type 0, and I love Type 0. You know, Type 0 being the beginning, Final Fantasy 13 being in the middle, and Final Fantasy versus 13 to 15 being the end. Another reason why I like Final Fantasy 13 is it did take tropes from old Final Fantasy games and mix it in with their new gameplay mechanics and style as well. Even though I do gotta complain when you had to buy upgrades on the first game due to the fact of it being expensive, you know, venture, but 13-2 has fixed that, considering it was easy to get gills by doing hunts and side quests in 13-2. Same thing with Lightning's Return, which was a positivity for Lightning's Return, was the fact it was like 13-2 where you could easily earn a bunch of gil, because they fixed that from the first game. The first game, it was almost nearly impossible to earn at least the gil, unless you knew what you were doing. So they did fix up their stuff. They fixed their engines. They fixed everything in the upcoming sequels. And they even put DLC where it changed some things. Because the thing that was confusing with Final Fantasy 13 too, you know, the thing that was confusing about it is how it had Lightning on the cover of the game, but you didn't get to play Lightning until you didn't get to play Lightning after that beginning scene. But they fixed it with DLC and have it where you face Caius' Lightning and defeat Caius before Caius enacts his plan. So, thus, you know, you're able to play Lightning again, and then the fact you're able to face Lightning, Snow, and everybody else. And another reason why I like Final Fantasy 13 is 13-2 when they bought the classic bosses up. And when I mean they bought the classic bosses, they bought back Omega Weapon, they bought back they bought back the classics like Omega Weapon, they bought back Gilgamesh, Typhoon, just, you know, all those classic things, and as well as even the classic 13 characters like that we never got to fight, like Jill Nabat and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, they bought back the old 13 stuff and as DLC stuff, and they also bought back the classics, the very classics, to put back in the classics. And then also as well as their DLC. I love their DLC because you get the classic costumes. I only got Lightning's Return and pre-order Lightning's Return just for the Cloud Strife First Class Soldier outfit for Lightning. Just for that costume alone. So, these are the reasons why I like Final Fantasy 13, and I'm never going to change my mind on 13. 13 was a good game in my book, and I'm never gonna change my mind. So may the crystal be with you.